Hi, my name is Aracelis Girmay, and I will be reading my poem entitled The Black Maria. Black the raven, black the dapples on the moon and horses, black sleep of night and the night's idea. Black the piano, white its teeth, but black its gums and mind with which we serenade the Black Maria. And the night, wearing its special silver, serenades us too, with metaphors for how the body makes semen stars, egg moon. 1600s, European ships heave fatly with the weight of black grief, black flesh, black people across the sea. The astronomers think the moon's dark marks are also seas and call them the Black Maria. Meanwhile, the Italian Riccioli, naming the seas according to his language and sensibilities. Riccioli naming the dark fur of the moon, mare cognitum, mare crisium, mare fecunditatis, sea that has become known, sea of crises, sea of fertility. If it is up to Riccioli, then these are the names of three of the Black Maria. I call the sea Mar. I call the sea Bahari. I call the moon Luna. But far is my word for both you and the moon. I heard a story once of a woman in the Sahara who for years carried a single page of Anna Karenina that she read over and over, the long combers of print repeating like the waves of the Black Maria. Language is something like this, a hard studying of cells under a microscope, cells on their way to becoming other things, a person, a book, a moon. Above the bowl, I crack the egg of this idea, yolk from clear. Which is it? Which is not it? Does moon name the whole thing, or just the side we know, the side made dark with the Black Maria? How language is an asha tree, a fool that grows everywhere, a snake shedding its skin, a bowl of teeth, a kitchen plate of shadow and ruins, like the moon. Moon says, please God, crowd my loneliness with stars. But the star's life is short compared to moon's. There is always a funeral. Moon is always wearing the veil of the Black Maria. However pretty the sound, it was a misidentification to name the basalt basins and craters the Black Maria of the moon. If this is a poem about misseeing, Renisha McBride, Trayvon Martin, Rakia Boyd, then these are also three of the names of the Black Maria. Naming, however kind, is always an act of estrangement, to put into language that which can't be put. And someone who does not love you cannot name you right, and even moon can't carry the moon. If this is a poem about estrangement and waters made dark with millions of names and bodies, the Atlantic Ocean, the Mediterranean, and Caribbean seas, the Mississippi, then these are also the names of the Black Maria. For days, the beautiful child Emmett swells into Tallahatchie. Even now, the moon paints its face with Emmett's in petition. Open casket of the night, somebody's child, our much more than the moon. I had been writing this long poem in tercets that really was imagining a whale that had lived hundreds of years and was kind of documenting the history of the sea. And I happened to be in Italy in 2013 for a fellowship at Civitella Ranieri, a beautiful fellowship in which I was in residency for 6 weeks in Umbria, Tuscany, gorgeous countryside. And while I was there, there was another terrible capsizing of a boat off of the coast of Lampedusa. And I had already been thinking deeply about, the history of Middle Passage and thinking about this in connection to attempted crossings of the Mediterranean by African people in the last over the last 30 years, and was thinking about this story in relation, these histories in relation to one another. And when this terrible capsizing happened, I went back to what I was working on, and I swept away the whale and realized that I needed to think about myself, not through the whale, but through myself and my histories, and was really interested in like histories of misseeing. And somewhere along the way, that relationship to like the moon and how we name things, and that became a kind of central question to this larger book. I realized in this poem in particular, this was a way to hold several ideas at once, using this repetition of the Black Maria as a kind of repeated phrase that's looking at different people, different waters. It was a chance to kind of carry many threads of the book inside a single poem. So it feels kind of essayistic in that way. It felt essential for me to name Blackness and its beauties. And so that first stanza, when I look, black the raven, black the dapples on the moon, black sleep of night, and the night's idea, the raven's black is a beauty to me. The dapples on the moon, the piano, the gums. It almost feels like a mini ode to Blackness, but not just that. An insistence, a way of orienting, I hope, whoever enters into the poem to know, like, this is what I mean when I say Blackness. I don't have the ideas of another who might say Blackness and mean something else, whatever that is, and sometimes something violent, but this is what I mean. And so I think it hopes to be an orientation, something kind of axiomatic, and a praise song. And so that when we get into the violences of history, or 1600s European ships heave fatly with the weight of Black grief, that I'm trying to say something about how those violences don't have anything to do with Blackness, actually. Those violences are violences of misseeing, violences of thinking that one life matters more or less than another, and that is not a fault or even an essential part of Blackness. That is somebody else's, or that is an imagination at work. And it does not have to be. I'm kind of like trying to insist on these beauties and also have my eye on what has been done to even like the ways that we are taught to think about Blackness or darkness. It feels like, you know, language can be used in any way we can imagine. We've seen it used in all of the ways. We've seen it used to cloak, to clarify, to hurt, to harm, to soften, to give love, to record, all of those ways. I think I'm most interested in trying to make work that is a kind of record of histories I feel connected to, that I learned from. I rarely read this poem out loud. And that, I think that was like from the very beginning, like right when it was published, I think I maybe read it out loud twice. The sharing of it feels really complex. I struggle with not the tenderness of like something about calling Emmett Till the beautiful child Emmett. That part feels like something I want to just like say over every street, over every water, the beautiful child, and all of the names of every child. The brutality is so immense of what was done to him. And then to see that reflected, or to imagine that image, that one could read that image when reading the moon, feels both true. If you know, as somebody who's spent time thinking a lot about his mother's decision to have an open casket funeral and to show the world what these men had done to her child. So that image is there, and I had been spending a lot of time thinking about his mother. At writing the book, the end of the book, being pregnant myself and then having a baby, and just so the truth of that image as what I was seeing, that's real. But to say it out loud and share it with others feels hard, and I don't feel resolved in that decision. What does feel critical to me is the notion that a child or a person can belong to another and also be ours, and must be ours, as Lucille Clifton taught us to think, as Gwendolyn Brooks taught us to think. And so the insistence on the hour of everyone, OUR, that feels like something I want the poem to offer. I don't know all of what it produces in us. To think about seeing Emmett Till's face after he had been killed, as opposed to before, and that, you know, that is a struggle that I think, you know, I imagine I'll remain in struggle about that, not just in this poem, but, you know, as I move through life and teach my children, you know, like how much is remembering the violence, which is critical, but also how to remember we are much more than that.